Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time.
All right, today we're diving into John Corrigan's fascinating book, Emptiness. Now, his big idea is that this concept of a void or emptiness, well, it wasn't just some personal feeling. He argues it was a huge public force that literally shaped American religion, its culture, and, yeah, even its borders.
So let's get right into it. What exactly is he talking about when he says emptiness? Because, it's not what you might think.
Okay, so here's the book's central argument. Emptiness wasn't just treated as some private emotion. Nope, it was something much bigger. It became this recurring theme, almost like a structural tool that was used to organize whole communities, to decide who was in and who was out, and ultimately to build up institutional power.
And the way Corrigan lays it out is really interesting. He shows how this whole concept operates kind of like an engine, a self-perpetuating system. Once you get it started, it just keeps running on its own steam.
So how does this engine actually work? Well, it's basically a four-step cycle. First, an institution comes along and defines some kind of lack or emptiness in people. Step 2, that definition creates a ton of anxiety, right? Then, step 3, the very same institution offers the perfect solution to fill that void they just pointed out. And finally, step 4, by providing the solution, they solidify their own authority. It's a brilliant loop. Okay, to really get a grip on this, the book gives us this incredibly powerful central metaphor. It really helps make sense of how this all works. I want you to think of emptiness not as just a void, but as a mold. It might look hollow on the inside, but that hollow space has a very specific shape, a very specific purpose. And this is the absolute key. That perceived emptiness, that hollowness, it isn't just nothing. Its entire purpose is to give shape to whatever gets poured inside it. We're talking about an individual's identity, a community's beliefs, even a whole nation's sense of itself. So get this, the void is the structure.
All right, so let's look at how this mold actually works in the real world. How did it shape the nation? Well, it happened through a few really key patterns. The language of emptiness was used over and over again in three big ways. First, you had the idea of hollow souls. This defined certain people as needing to be saved, which basically drew a line around who belonged. Second, there was the labeling of other beliefs as empty doctrines, which was a powerful way to exclude outsiders. And third, this idea of vacant land, imagining huge territories as just empty and waiting to be filled. And this quote just illustrates the point perfectly. Corrigan shows how these three ideas weren't just separate thoughts. No way. They were all woven together into one big, coordinated message. A message that structured who belongs, that justified who gets excluded, and that fueled this massive vision for expansion. And this is why the whole pattern is so hard to break. The very same institutions that are pointing out the emptiness, the hollow soul, the wrong belief, the empty land, they're also the only ones offering the solution to become full. It's a perfect, self-contained system. So all of this brings us right back to our show's central theme, a crisis in perception. Here's where the crisis really hits. We get so focused on the theology, right? The stuff being poured into the mold, but we completely miss the mold itself. We don't see the underlying system, that structure of emptiness that's actually shaping those beliefs and giving them their power in the world. See, when we separate a belief from the structure that gives it power, that's a fundamental crisis in perception. And it leaves us with a really big question to chew on. What other voids in our world today, things that feel like absences, are actually powerful structures in disguise?
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon. For a longer, audio-based analysis of this topic, see the deep dive linked in the description.
If you enjoyed this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.